Alright, so apparently my camera doesn't allow me to go too far into this, so I guess I'm going to have a part 2 here. So we're on fantasy. Fantasy happens is when the student's daydreaming. Let's say I'm debriefing you on how your flight went today, and you tune me out completely. And I'm just talking, but you're not hearing one thing I say because you're fantasizing about, hey, someday I'm going to be an airline pilot, and things like that. So what can happen with that is you actually start to believe, and then it could become a reality to you. But you're fantasizing, you're dreaming. It's also called flight too. Some people use the word flight for fantasy. Next, displacement. Displacement is when you put everything aside and put all the blame on someone, a spouse. The FAA uses a spouse. Put all the blame on them because they were going to forgive you later on. You just want it displaced. So you put your anger for your mistake on somebody else, a spouse, wife, family member, because you know eventually they will forgive you. So that's displacement. And next, last one is reaction formation. Reaction formation is when the student makes a mistake, but they believe the opposite of what really happened. So, let's say let's go back to when the airplane went off the runway because they weren't using enough right rudder. Well, they don't agree with that. They know they were putting rudder in. And actually they weren't, but so that's what reaction formation is. They make excuses to what they make up something, and they actually end up believing that that's what really happened. So those are your defense mechanisms that students like to use. So the next part of the human behavior is students end up getting anxiety and student emotional reactions. So student emotional reaction, you got anxiety, and stress. Well, every student's going to have anxiety. It's a mental uneasiness arising from fear. Like, hey, yeah, you may want to become a pilot, but you're scared. They fear the idea they have to solo. I mean, how could they get that anxiety? Like, it's like a psychological factor. There's something they're scared to do, and it's one of the biggest factors that affect flight instruction. So the instructor has to treat the fear as a normal reaction, but you can't ignore the fear. So you have to ease the student into understanding what's going on. So say introducing stalls. Why do we do stalls? We don't do stalls to stall the airplane on purpose. We do stalls to know if we end up in the stall, how to recover from it. So that's so you have to introduce maneuvers with care to the student. So when you have anxiety, you end up bringing in stress. So there's normal reactions and abnormal reactions. So normal reactions is maybe the student responds rapidly and quickly and exactly within the limits of their experience, that can be a good thing. But you don't want that to get out of hand because that could lead to a abnormal reaction, which is abnormal reaction. Maybe the students being just not listening, whistling, doing something abnormal, shaking the watch, or doing some kind of movement. And sometimes it can even lead to severe anger towards the instructor. Now, when a student gets this way, has abnormal stress, it's the instructor's responsibility to decide should the student continue with flying and maybe send them to another flight instructor that he has no acquaintance with. Fly with that instructor and see how he does with that instructor. And then if not, it's our responsibility to make sure this student never pursues in flight training, never becomes a pilot. Also, you can talk to a local FSDO about this and find out what his AME, talk to his AME about what's going on with him, because they're the one that did his medical, so he's a doctor, so we can talk to the AME about that. And obviously it's the AME that issued the medical certificate. So that's all of human behavior. Next would be effective communications. So, communications don't occur automatically, and a certain style of communications must be developed. So, some elements of communication would be, let's start with the source. The source would be me, or the instructor or teacher. They're providing all the information to the student. And it's the source's responsibility to be up to date, be confident, know what you're talking about, and look for a change in the student's behavior. And that tells you if they're actually learning. Try to use the same language as a student is another responsibility I have. And next would be the symbol. The symbol is the symbol of the object you're talking about. Let's make here's a symbol. This airplane is a symbol. We're talking about airplanes. But sometimes you have to use, we're getting into this later, fears that affect communication. But you have to use the right kind of symbol, because if you don't use the correct symbol, or use a different word than what the symbol is, it could cause confusion with the student. And the final source, symbol, and receiver. I almost forgot that. The receiver is the student. They're the one that they're the ones that have to react and respond to what's being said. If they're not learning. You have to look for a change in behavior in the receiver. But obviously, not all students learn. Almost everybody learns a different, unique way of learning. Has a unique way of learning. So you have to teach that student the way they need to be taught, or maybe more in depth of something. Someone else might understand it really quick, and then the other student might need more in-depth discussion about it. So that brings us to barriers that affect communication. And there's a little acronym here, COIL. So this is confusion, between the symbol and the symbolized object. Let's say I'm using this as an airplane. Or no, let me use this here. Here's our symbol, but I'm calling it an aircraft, not an airplane. So some people might think, hey, we're talking about a helicopter, or a blimp, or of course an airplane. So you have to be specific. I have to, instead of saying aircraft, if I want to talk about an airplane, I need to say airplane, because someone else might be thinking about something other than an airplane. We're on a different page. Next is overuse of abstractions. So, overuse of abstractions happen. Let's say you're flying in the pattern and you're too high, or you're too low, or on final you're too fast. Well, how fast? How much? Were you 5 knots fast? 10 knots fast? Were you 100 feet high? 200 feet high? You have to be more specific of what you were actually altitude you're at, not high or low. Be more specific. 100 feet high than you should have been. Okay, interference is the next barrier. And interference is out of my capability to prevent. I can't prevent this from happening, but maybe as I'm teaching right now, someone has a TV on really loud and interfering what's going on in here, or